hope all is well with you. And yeah, so let's get right into it. I feel like reading. I've been wanting to do it. I had a whole week off. My name is Tennille. I am a transformational coach and a NARC coach, and I offer 8 week program called From Sealed to Healed, helping you, guiding you through what cluster B personalities are, their tactics, who, what, when, where, and how. And then we use that information to get you to your authentic self. And that is an 8 week course which comes with a workbook, comes with video conferencing with me weekly. And if you would like, you can sign up for one-on-one sessions. So it's a pretty good deal. Could be a heck of a lot more, but I think for 8 weeks, it's about $100 a week. So, you're getting a good deal and you're getting good stuff. And I think for a bonus, we're going to get into some Vedic mantra. Okay. And so, I I like the group, but I also like I like the one-on-one better. But we're gonna try and do this individually. So anyway, it's up and available. Also, empathic listening. You get 30. I think what is it? I haven't looked at it in a minute, but 5 minutes, I believe, for $40. So yeah. Sorry, it's been a weird month. A lot of things have gone on. I know you guys have felt the energy shifts. We've shifted, jumped timelines. Like, that's a term that I would never thought that I would use. I'm a Generation Xer, and I remember that there was this TV show where a guy actually jumped timelines, and he actually jumped in people's bodies. So, or he became people. He became other people in that timeline to keep them, sorry, air conditioning, to keep them from making a mistake or going in left when they needed to go right. And I think it was something about time jumping. So anyway, I felt it. A lot of different stuff going on, and if you're like me, where it's overwhelming, so I shut that out and I try and focus on what it is that I have to do, and my healing and my growth and my clients and my fur babies, and just, being open to what is next. Okay. So anyway, if you have any questions, please go ahead and DM me. Pretty easy to get along with. What makes me different as a transformational coach and a NARC coach is that I go through this with you. This is not, you will be doing the program. It's a hybrid program, basically. You do it online, but you're going to be doing video conferences with me every week. So you got a week, so I mean, it's not like you can't skip ahead, but we are going to meet weekly. So, because that's part of it. Okay. And there's a workbook that goes with it. So we're going to go over the work that you did. How did you, you know what I mean? How do you feel about it? Etc. I'm a transformational coach, a life coach, and a NARC coach. I am not a licensed psychologist or psychiatrist. Okay, there's a difference. So I guide you through, whereas a counselor, they deal with some of the harder things, right? Like, even if you get triggered, I always tell my clients, and I had one who, she actually had a licensed therapist that she was seeing. So that was, so if you get triggered, you have them. Okay. Because I don't want to ever say, it's kind of like being a security guard. We can never tell our clients that we're police officers, nor should we try and impersonate one, because it is against the law. Okay. But, I'm very passionate and I'm very thorough. And I do come from an occult perspective, which is why we are reading today Paranormal Parasites. This is the 11th part. This is 164 pages, and I believe we are on page. This always does this to me. All of my electronics are like archaic, so that's what I found out. So I gotta upgrade and update myself. Um, I think it's page 119. But anyway, this is by Nick Redfern, and he also has a couple other books out there. I suggest that, if you get this, and I believe I don't believe, I know that at the end of this, I'm going to put some screenshots on my community board of some things that I found very interesting that led me down another rabbit hole, like orgon means organism or orgasm. And there are, like Asmodeus, Azazel, most of the demons do feed off of lust, do, benefit off of lust, or are lust demons, but they also, I think, well, I don't know anyway, but they grant power and all this other kind of stuff. So just like it's P. Diddy as Asmodeus. That's basically basically it. Okay, without further ado, I am again so excited because we're almost done with this book and I get to go into another one and actually I may just pause. Um, because, or I may not, because I've been wanting to read it anyway. And it's along paranormal parasites, but it's about reptilians and sex, and like, so when you meet a narcissist, a cluster B personality, right? They're demonically possessed. They're very evil, but they're very sexual. So, you know what I mean? But that's why I keep telling people, as me as a coach, I say narcissism just as a general term, but it's a cluster B personality, which means it's a character disturbance, which means that these guys are never going to get help because they can't. It is literally in their DNA. And even let's say they never started out like that, that's where they were headed, right? Because those demons pass down in their bloodline. It's in the blood, it's in the DNA cosmically, right? So somebody explained it so perfectly, and I was so happy because sometimes as a seer, as an empath, earth angel, whatever, it's just somebody who's very awake and aware. Like, I've remembered past lives. I've remembered things that I wasn't supposed to remember being here, right? And unfortunately, I was in meditation with the Most High, and I was like, it feels like I'm kind of starting to lose it, because when you can't produce, when you can't birth what you're pregnant with, right? What is ever is encoded in us. We become still and stagnant, and I don't mean trigger warning, it becomes stillborn. And it's very upsetting. So I've been doing a lot of crying because there's a lot going on in the world, and really God's like, I understand, we're working, it puts everything in perspective. And so anyway, so there's another book. I forgot the name of it, so please forgive me. I'll get it later and I'll post it if I remember. Okay, so here we go. This is Paranormal Parasites by Nick Redfern, and we are on chapter 13, Monsters of a Mysterious Island. Hopefully I did not read this already. I don't believe I did. Of the many and varied strange creatures that fall into domain of cryptozoology, there are few more infamous than Chupacabra of Puerto Rico. The phenomenon began in 1995, specifically in August. That was when a woman named Madeline Tolentino reported seeing a truly bizarre-looking beast roaming around Canovanas, which is located in the northeast portion of Puerto Rico. Terrified by the encounter, Tolentino said that the monster briefly in her midst was approximately 3 feet tall, had large dark eyes, and a row of, something running down its head and back. And it ran in an odd hopping style, not unlike that of a kangaroo. In the immediate days afterward, further sightings of the beast were reported, and in other parts of the island too. Whatever the creature was, it was definitely on the move. Others confirmed seeing the odd protrusions on the head and back of the beast. It was a row of sharp, imposing spikes. One witness who got a little too close to the creature, also in Canovanas, was treated to a view of the creature's huge, dangerously looking fangs. In no time at all, the chupacabra, which is Spanish term for goat sucker, and a name it got because of the fact that the creature is said to predominantly attack goats and suck their blood, became the subject of major discussion in Puerto Rico. And it didn't take long before the story reached the rest of the world. Monster hunters and UFO seekers descended on the island in droves, all keen to solve the riddle of what was roaming Puerto Rico, specifically in Canovanas and the heart of the huge El Yunque rainforest. Since 1995, literally hundreds of reports have surfaced of the creature in and its predations on Puerto Rico. In some cases, witnesses describe seeing entire packs of animals hunting in heavily wooded portions of the island, seeking out goats, pigs, chickens to satisfy their appetites. Others report having seen the animals entering and exiting some of the many cave systems that pepper Puerto Rico, which has led to the intriguing theory that the creatures are predominantly nocturnal. They surface at night to hunt and feast, and then as dawn breaks, they return to their dark, shadowy abodes. Those very same caves, of course. Given the fact that most of the sightings of the chupacabra do occur at night, it's highly likely that this theory has more than a bit of merit attached to it. But what exactly is the chupacabra? The theories are many: extraterrestrial creatures, giant bats, monkeys that have been genetically mutated in secret government labs, and surviving relics from the Jurassic era. There is, however, a highly alternative theory for the true nature of the chupacabra, and it's a theory that ties in with the theme of this book, as you will now see. A bloody nightmare. I have been on many expeditions to Puerto Rico, all to seek out the truth behind the chupacabra phenomenon. My first trip to the island was in 2004, and the most recent was in 2016. During my visits, which collectively amount to several months in total, I have spoken to many witnesses of the creature and its attacks. As a result, there is no doubt in my mind that the chupacabra phenomenon is all too real. During the course of my many expeditions, however, I have uncovered something that was largely been that has largely been overlooked or deliberately ignored by others who have sought to solve the mystery of the monster and its origins. I have found that there is a tendency among the chupacabra seeking community to believe that the creatures are flesh and blood animals of an unknown type and nothing more. There is, however, a large body of data that suggests the creatures have supernatural origins, an area that many are reluctant to address, and that the one thing they crave more than any other is blood, ours. It's an intriguing and often overlooked fact that in nearly all of the cases on record, when the chupacabra attacks, it seldom feasts on the corpses of the animals it slaughters. Rather, witnesses claim it drains massive amount of blood from the bodies of the animals unfortunate enough to have been killed. Of course, for some researchers, this is evidence that the chupacabras might really be giant vampire bats, which don't actually suck blood but lap it up after making small cuts on the skin of the animals they feed on. The available data, however, strongly suggests we should look deeper into the supernatural aspects of the Puerto Rican beast. An investigation begins. As I said, my very first trip to Puerto Rico was in 2004 with a team from the Sci-Fi Channel's Proof Positive show, along with me as a friend and fellow monster hunter from the UK, Jonathan Downs. For a week or so, John and I roamed around the island, tracking down witnesses and securing intriguing stories, all on the chupacabra. Yes, we obtained more than a few reports of the attacks of the mysterious animals. But we uncovered something else too. There were fears and suspicions on the part of the locals that the attacks were the work of monsters that dwelled in other almost magical dimensional realms and only entered our reality when they needed to feed or when we invoked them. That was not all. According to several of the people John and I spoke to, which included veterinarians, ranchers, and police officers, there are suspicions that the chupacabras had been supernaturally summoned. In this scenario, the creatures had been given access that our world by a powerful secret society on the island, one which performed magical rites and rituals to achieve their goals of power and influence. In that secret society, blood was not just part of their rituals. It was seen as something that would appease the bloodlust of the chupacabra. And here is where things got really controversial. As I noted earlier in this particular chapter, the animals most often attacked and killed by the chupacabra are goats, chickens, and pigs. There are, however, more than a few rumors of attacks on people. Attacks that Puerto Rican authorities were determined to keep hidden firmly under wraps, which is perhaps understandable. They were said to be attacks that always ended in a violent death for the person in question. If true, it's certainly no surprise that officialdom would do its very best to bury such events for fear of mass hysteria breaking out. A sinister series of rituals. One of the most macabre stories told to us on the 2004 trek around Puerto Rico with the Sci-Fi Channel came from a woman who lived in Ponce and whose story is one of the most controversial on record. Julia, as I'll call her, claimed to know a great deal about the secret society that was at the heart of this controversy. There was a very good person there was a very good reason why Julia was so well informed. Her ex-husband was a member of the group. He was also a powerful figure on the island, specifically in the real estate business. He had been invited into the group in 1999, which was around a year before he and Julia married. In fact, it was his connections to the group that led to their divorce less than a year after they married. When Julia's husband finally confided in her the details of his secret life, Julia was outraged, not just because he had kept his life from her, but also because of what exactly he was involved in. Julia's husband told her that it was due to certain supernatural pacts between the group and the paranormal denizens of realms beyond ours that he now... What was that? Okay, sorry. Julia's husband told her that it was due to certain supernatural pacts between the group and the paranormal denizens of realms between ours that he now had so much prestige, power, and money. There was, however, a price to pay, as there always is when one makes a deal with malignant supernatural things from other dimensional planes. That price revolved around nothing less than human blood. Julia sat and listened, both horrified and terrified by what she was hearing, as her husband outlined what was going on. It was no coincidence, he said, that his life had massively altered for the better in 1999. It was all down to the invitation and his willingness to do whatever needed to be done to ensure wealth and influence. Julia's husband had been presented at a particular ritual that was held at a spacious home of a Puerto Rican drug baron who also put his success down to the same secret society. The story got even more controversial. Julia admitted that she couldn't prove any of what she was telling us back in 2004, but she claimed that to have been told of three people on the island who had been paid, and paid very well, to provide the group with supplies of their very own blood and to discuss it with no one. So the tale went that people were taken to the location of the meeting, which was high in the hills of the El Unique rainforest, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Rainforest, and the blood was taken by a local doctor who was also well paid for his actions and his silence. The three, two men, two women, and one man, were one by one placed on a large ornate altar at which the blood was removed. Then, with the doctor and the three donors driven back to their respective homes after being warned to never ever discuss what had happened to with anyone, the blood was used in a complex ritual to conjure up and manifest a chupacabra. Julia claimed that her husband assured her that the ritual worked all too well. The group of several dozen, all dressed in cloaks no less, focused their minds on having the chupacabra appear before them, which is exactly what is said to have happened. What gets me, just a side note, gets me is I keep stressing the power of our mind. It is amazing. Because that's after reading this, if you're following along, and go to the playlist, and also please give this a thumbs up if you're interested in this kind of genre of stories and reading, and if you can relate to anything, share your story. But it's because it all boils down to belief and energy. Okay. A chupacabra materializes. It was a hellish situation. The lights in the building flickered, and the room was filled with a nauseating odor of sulfur. That's a demon. In seconds, the air shimmered like a heat haze on the road on a hot summer's day, and the creature slowly came into being, hunched over and staring at the group malevolently. Even long-term members of the group were shocked to their collective core by what they were seeing. It was exactly what the group was counting on, but actually seeing the monster up close and personal was something else entirely. One and all were quietly told to remain as calm as possible despite the fraught and fantastic nature of the events. There was one thing that none of the members of the group could avoid seeing. The chupacabra was semi-transparent. It was far more spectral than it was physical. That is, until the monster placed its clawed paws into a large bowl in which substantial amounts of blood had been poured. Within seconds of the creature doing so, its transparency was no more, and it was suddenly a completely physical entity. Julia's husband was unable to explain the process, mainly because no one seemed to understand the full scope of what it was they were dealing with. He did, however, state that the magical nature of human blood, when ingested in large amounts, not only fed the chupacabra, but also gave it physical substance in our world. It marked difference to the ethereal form it had in its own realm. When the creature was apparently sated and fed, it vanished in a bright blue flash that affected the eyes of one and all present for several minutes. Julia listened further as she was told that several other such rituals had taken place in the 1990s, the first of which had allegedly led to the beginning of the chupacabra phenomenon in 1995. Julia sat back appalled and frightened by what she had heard, not knowing whether or not to believe it. It was, however, the undeniable fear in her husband's eyes that finally convinced her he was telling the truth. A truth that revolved around how the chupacabra needs to feast on our blood to maintain a foothold in our world. No wonder Julia chose to leave her marriage behind her. The FBI and a monster. On my third expedition to Puerto Rico, just a few years later, I heard somewhat a similar story. Yes, there were differences, but the basic plot connection between the chupacabra and human blood was the same. The source was a rancher who had a controversial story to tell, one that involved none other than the FBI, which has an office in the city of San Juan and the capital of Puerto Rico. This was actually not the first time I had heard of an FBI connection to Chupacabra. In September 2005, which was when I traveled to Puerto Rico for the second time with a team from Canada's Red Star Films, our guide was a local man named Orlando Pla, PLA. He told me that a couple of years earlier, the local FBI office had opened a file on the chupacabra. It was not a file on the beast itself, though. Rather, as Pla told me, the FBI was investigating the theory that the attacks on farm animals were not the work of the chupacabra, but of occultists who were using the chupacabra phenomenon as a cover for their own clandestine activities of the sacrificial variety. In some respects, this sounds very much like the same group that Julia told Dawn Downs and I about back in 2004. Jorge was the rancher who revealed what he knew of all this. He was someone who I first met with back in 2004, but who didn't want to speak out in front of the cameras and have his identity blown wide open. And who could blame him for what? For that. Jorge was, however, fine about his first name and his hometown being used, but that was about all. Clearly, he had concerns about his safety, which I could tell was the case. Those concerns were more than understandable. Jorge, like Julia, had heard of a secret cult, as he worded it, which had strands and tentacles all across the island, specifically in the domain of big business, which also echoes the words of Julia. Jorge's animals had been attacked by what was assumed to have been a chupacabra, and he wasted no time calling the police. Oddly, though, it was a pair of agents from the FBI rather than Puerto Rico's local authorities who responded and turned up to investigate. Jorge, confused by the fact that the FBI would be interested in the killing of 5 of his farm animals, asked what was going on. He was quietly told that there were suspicions which mirrored the story told to me in 2005 by Orlando Pla, that the attacks may have been the work of cultists. The pair had a look around Jorge's property, took a few photos, thanked him, and then went on their way. That was not the end of the matter, though. Several days later, an elderly man dressed in an expensive suit arrived at Jorge's home and practically invited himself in. Such was his insistence that he talked with Jorge. It turned out that somehow the group that FBI suspected was using the chupacabra issue as a cover had learned about the visit by 2 bureau agents in Jorge's home. The old man, who Jorge said looked pale and sickly, warned Jorge of the perils of even thinking about speaking with the FBI again. Although for someone who seemingly wanted to keep everything under wraps, the old man was oddly talkative, informing Jorge that human blood was at the heart of the chupacabra manifestations, and that as Jorge worded it, blood sacrifice was integral to the success of the program. It must be noted that Jorge's use of the word sacrifice was a very controversial one, since it suggested that perhaps some of the people used in these rituals did not just offer a safe amount of their blood, but lost their very lives in the name of Chupacabra. Try as I might, Jorge would not expand on this matter, and I did not learn anything else that might have suggested a line had been crossed to a terrible, unforgivable degree. Yes, Jorge was told the Chupacabra was all too real, but the deadly beast could not exist in our world without human blood. The Chupacabra did not live on human blood as a vampire bat might. Rather, it needed blood energy. With that all said, the old man withered the old withered man left and was driven away in a large black car. Jorge had one more attack on his property 4 months later. He chose not to report it to anyone except me when we finally caught up again. All right, that's a weird chapter. So sorry if I keep pausing because some of the sentences are weirdly structured. And that's the end of that chapter. So, chapter 14, we're talking about Bigfoot. And so, just want to remind you guys again, my name is Tennille, and I am a transformational coach, a narc coach, and I have two 2-month programs. Sorry. A program called From Sealed to Healed, which is 8 weeks, and it schools you on cluster B personalities, who, what, when, where, and how. And then the second part of the program is using what you've learned in the first 4 weeks, to be able to get you to your higher self again, right? So that getting you to know your person, getting you out of the fear, getting you to heal yourself so that you can heal your inner child, all of that stuff. And all this stuff that I did myself. I was 10 years on the streets, 10 years being gang stalked, 3 years on the streets. And, so I had to learn about why I was repeating patterns that was very blatant to me. Before I became homeless, I started noticing patterns, and it was really weird. And I don't think anything is an accident. I don't think that there's coincidences, because I'm like, why am I noticing these patterns? Like, they're just patterns. And before I had become homeless, I was really stagnant. I was really fearful. I've been going to school to be a filmmaker. I love photography, black and white specifically, Ansel Adams, but every time I went to go and be creative, I always had a hater. That's what I noticed. I always had a hater. And now I know them as cluster B personalities, right? Whether they be family members. I grew up with a cluster B father. Later on, the second half, I would meet my cluster B mother, so wasn't really, and then I had the flying monkeys, siblings. I mean, my story is a television series. A film, like Godfather, like probably like a 20-discer, So when I'm coaching you, when I'm, you're working with me, there's a workbook, there's, as I said, workbook and weekly video calls, and you can do one-on-one sessions with me if you'd like. They're offered, and that will be free during, it's part of the program, 8-week program. But I've been through a lot. I've had people try and take my life for simply setting a boundary, for simply rejecting their advances, and this is after doing the work. So, and I know that a lot of people want to see you in the glitz and the glamour, to have, as if somehow that's proof. And maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Unfortunately or fortunately, I made it out, but, and I still have people who are still obsessed. They're still watching. I remember when I moved, God told us to move because things were getting a lot more intense, and the attacks were coming more fervently. They were not going to let up. And if you listen to the psychic, I think her name is Bella, Bella something. She was talking about P. Diddy, and see, things are coming out now that we have been longing to have come out. And during my day, when I was bringing this stuff out, because I didn't, pardon me, have a name for myself. Why? Because I was being sabotaged every single time I would do something. Because when people realize that they can't come with you, then they don't want you to go in the first place. And unfortunately, that's been my life story. um, and with patterns dealt with and breaking generational curses, I would rather have broke those generational curses and undone those patterns, because now I can recognize what is mine and what is not, what is God speaking and what is the devil speaking, or one of his agents speaking, and what is me, right? And I know that it's hard for people who don't want to take up this battle. It's hard. It's hard. Like, but I don't regret it at all. I don't regret it. But I come from the occult because I had people who were astral leaving their bodies. So you can be ghosted in the astral realm. Okay, so basically people who are fragmenting themselves, and somebody mentioned this on TikTok, and this is this P. Diddy stuff, because that's what the Bella, I can't find her name, but it's Bella something, and she's on YouTube. Let me see. I'm trying to see what her name is. Oh, there it is. There she is. Sloan Bella.
They're blocked from seeing what happened before.
So
they're blocked from seeing what happened before and what happened after. So she's kind of unsure about how they view her, because they only have this little vignette of experience in front of them. And it's not correct. Her older boy knows. Her older boy knows, okay? So the older son knows. It resonates with him. He understands. The girls have been blocked. They have been deliberately, energetically capped, is the word that she's using.
right there.
And she's using it to show me, and this is what she's showing me, so here we go. She's using it to show me that when you have energy, and our energy extends out way past our physical, okay?
Yep.
And when,
Auric field.
and she's the word
Ether
controllers, when people who want to control you or dominate you have an understanding of outside of the physical world, they can cap your energy so you can't even access the other clips to the movie. That's what she's saying happened to her daughters. It happened to her too. She's talking about the binding that happened when she crossed out of her body, that pulled her in a direction she didn't want to go. There was a lot of confusion. What she'd been told about passing away is not what happened to her. She is still here because it is still unsettled. She's not like...
Okay, so for me, like, it's not the situation, but it's how she's describing it. Because how many of us, Phoenixes, being very enlightened already, because the whole thing, we are in this world, we are not of this world. Okay, so it's not that God is not for you, or God is not helping you in any way, shape, or form. It is that these guys have power, and they have manipulated, like she said, like Sloan Bella said, she was told from somebody on the other side, and she also said in another clip that a rapper had died, and basically those he thought that were his homies. So imagine, like, you got, Tigga and what, I don't really listen to all this music now because it's gross to me. But all the known rappers and whatnot that they've astral projected out of their bodies, and they're watching this person cross over. right? And they're stopping this person from crossing over so that they could keep it him or her as a slave, that energy as a slave, to keep reproducing, to keep so you ever wonder why you, like, all these girls start sounding the same, all these guys start sounding the same, all start looking the same, right? Because you're harnessing. And like Nicki Minaj is supposed to be little Kim now. You see what I'm saying? So they're already harnessing these people and their energy, their etheric bodies, their auric fields. They're already siphoning into. They've already. It's kind of like holding semen. Is the only way that I could say it. So anyway, that's where I'm coming from, because I have seen into the spiritual realm. That's one of my gifts. I can see into the spiritual realm. So it pisses the people off who have been trying to sacrifice me. Unfortunately, and I know some of us have been, going through the same similar things as Kim Porter and Cassie, right? Where we've going through that abuse. Some of us haven't even dated these people, but they're so obsessed with control and power. Like I've mentioned this before, I still have these guys that are obsessed because I moved. When I moved, it got less because these, so because I imagine having people that are in your auric field, not because I wasn't praying and I wasn't fasting, because I was damn near starving myself. But I could see these people and it was crowded. People were smoking. People were doing drugs. People were trying to. I remember I was at work and somebody tried to give me some Coke. So, if you have had supernatural, paranormal situations happen, I am that kind of transformational coach that can help you through that. Okay, there's because, just to give you the tools. My whole goal is to give tools, especially to other black women who are lesbian, trans women, bi, straight, doesn't matter. Just women, black women, because, we need to know this too. It's not just, you can still read the Bible, but understand what it's saying, right? Understand the metaphysics of it. Right? I love the Most High God with all of my heart. That's why I don't give up. That's why I didn't, do the unthinkable for myself, because of the stress and the whatever. So, I saw my mom in the spiritual realm, and my mom, she became my guardian, but she was mad though. She was not having it. So, but I mean, go back to my other podcast when I'm talking about my golden child sister and how she basically, killed my mom for insurance money, and that I never had to be homeless for those 3 years. Right. So it's, it's not, people have free will. And I ask my guides and the Most High God to intervene, especially when I'm feeling weak, when I'm tired, when my soul is tired. Right. And I need extra help. When I can't do it, when my body is like, if you fast for one more damn day, it's already been 60 days, dude. If you fast for one more damn day, we're, we're checking out, and serious, because right now it's, you deal with some, because I got off of the regimen. Intermittent fasting is a great thing, right? But when you have to, because you can't eat while you are stressed out. Okay, that's how we gain weight. That's how because your body is shutting down because it's in fight or flight mode. So it's shutting down. That means, and when my body, I don't know about anybody else, but when my body shuts down, it shuts everything down, including digestion. Like it's going at a snail's pace, like a serious snail's pace. So, and I feel it, anytime I have, I've encountered demonic energy. I remember when I started, somebody attacked me, or I was attacked, and I felt my whole body kind of contort like a can being crushed. Spiritually, that's how it felt. Like a can being crushed. So I share what I share at the time, because it's in the spiritual realm. I am higher, but there's a lot of changes going on in this realm in the first place. You know what I mean? So it's not about the money, it's not about the house, it's not about the material things, it's the spiritual rank that you guys should be concerned about. And so, if you've listened to me for a minute, and you because I know I'm being capped and on my YouTube, on my TikTok. So I would appreciate it that anybody who comes and listens to this, that, if you get a little bit out of it, or just you want to support me, please do some thumbs up, subscribe, and ring the bell. All right, because I would certainly love to get my message out to more people who need it. Because as you see, we are in chaos, and people need to we need to have communities like the one the Phoenix's Rising Academy, to be able um, to have a place to share without any shame or guilt or judgment. Okay, so anyway, I'm out of here. I'm gonna go to bed because I gotta work in the morning early, but I thought I'd get this out finally after enjoying my whole week off. And I know, I feel for those of us who are like, you know what, I'm tired of going to work. Don't even want to go outside. I understand. I understand. But do your prayers and meditations, and have a Vedic mantra that you say to keep the peace, and keep you grounded. Just keep yourself grounded and keep your mind focused, right? Okay? I love you guys, and remember, your blessings are in your ashes. Rise.